Hi guys, it's Matt. Um, Over the past couple days, in honor of Uncle Barry, I've taken his letters and very carefully, since he very carefully in the letters noted where he was, when he was in World War II, um, I just created a little visual guide. You may have already done this. This first picture gives a very general overview of how he started and where he ended up. This here is Berlin. This here is Cherbourg. And he made that trip sometimes by some form of small trucks, army issue, sometimes on foot, often on foot. And it seems like the bulk of the combat was in this area in the later half of his trip. If you shift down here, you see that he landed in Cherbourg on the 22nd of September in 1944 and underwent 2 weeks of training there in the mud, as he puts it. You see some familiar names like Kahn. At this point, it seems there was a traveling that went through France, Belgium, Holland, and eventually Germany. It seems the first combat was here at Aachen, where he says we did okay. I'm not quite sure what he means by that, but I assume he means that his group came out favorably in the combat and purported themselves well. Number two, which is just to the north, to pan back all the way to Cherbourg, just to the north of Aachen is Immendorf, which is here. Immendorf, rather number three I have it as, Immendorf is where that picture is taken of them entering that town. They were supposed to attack a town beyond Immendorf. I don't know if it was this town or this town or this town. And Immendorf was supposed to be soft, but Immendorf was very tough, and some of the most intense combat of his experience happened in Immendorf. Linnick, number four, it's kind of hard to see in the light here, is just to the north of Immendorf. And again, I'll pull back for perspective all the way to Cologne on the far left. Linnick is where Uncle Barry, actually right here, turned down a street, and there was a Tiger tank which fired off a mortar shell, and he dove into a ditch, and the two soldiers who dove into the ditch with him were killed. He was knocked unconscious, recovered, scrambled to a house nearby where the rest of his men were, thinking he had been killed. And I believe, already having written the letter home, not having sent it, but we're about to. Then I kind of skipped to zooming in over here. We're in the same general area, but as you can see, here's Linux, which is what happened with the Tiger tank. This is a town called Beggendorf, right here. That town, to pull back here, if you get all the way up into this area, Berlin is north of here. That town, Beggendorf, is where they found 97 pillboxes, which are machine gun nests. Apparently, there was not a huge dust-up, but there were 97 pillboxes. They then moved on to a town called Ruhrdorf, which was the jumping off point to cross the Rhine River. And from there, they moved to a town called Katzum. This is all on foot. This is all encountering resistance along the way. From Katzum, they moved to a town called Erkelenz. Between the two were 3 towns and 10 miles to cover on foot. From Erkelenz, they moved to an area called Rheindalen. There's an actual city. The whole area was called Rheindalen Land. But in this town, they took this town of Rheindalen. They then moved northeast to a town called Krefeld. And then they moved north to a town called Kessel. And that's where they crossed the Rhine River. Uncle Barry calls it a, quote, colorful but not costly crossing. At that point, they seem to have circled down to a town called Rheinhausen, just on the one side of the Rhine. They set up the guns. I'm assuming we're talking about their artillery, obviously, in the Krupp steel plant, which Uncle Barry sort of ironically notes was in pretty good shape, because it's possible that the business interests reached certainly into Britain and very possibly into the United States, and it was thought, well, we don't have to blow up the Krupp steel plant, you know. It's going to do us all good when this war is over. Then we go to the final bit here. This, excuse the shakiness, I have to sit down. This is the last bit, and he and his men moved from the town of Kassel to the Elbe River, which is right here. To give you a sense of perspective, Berlin is right there. And this area right here is where they waited to link up with the Russians, who were coming down from the north. And there was that whole kerfuffle about let the Russians take Berlin first, which nobody was particularly thrilled about, least of all the United States. But it was right here in this area where Uncle Barry says that he waited until the war ended. And at that point, it was a question of would he be sent to Japan or the area? And shortly thereafter, of course, the war ended with the atomic bomb. So I thought that I would lay this all out and record it. But generally, again, to go back to the larger map, this was the general path you have, starting at Cherbourg, making his way through France, Belgium, Holland, then into Germany, where he saw the bulk of his combat, and finishing, waiting dozens of miles outside Berlin for the war to end. Anyway, God bless, and I hope this is helpful. Thanks. This is Matt.